Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to our second episode of our Maintaining Adaptive Capacity series. My name is Shay McNally, marketing specialist here at R3 Continuum. And joining us today, also from R3 Continuum, is our Vice President of Clinical Crisis Response, Jeff Gorder. Thank you for being with us today. In today's episode, we'll be discussing decision fatigue and how it can impact a leader's ability to effectively lead. So let's get it started here. And we'll start with the first question. Jeff, what is decision fatigue?
Well, thank you, Shane. Yeah, it's a great question because, again, it's a kind of, you don't often think of fatigue in related to that, to decision making, but decisions that have been required of business leaders in the face of COVID-19. Again, this is an utterly unprecedented situation. It's been over 100 years since the nation has faced a challenge of this size, of this scope. And so almost daily, since this has impacted the nation, business leaders are required to come up with new and novel and unusual situations, out-of-the-box decisions to try and respond to it. The unexpected and unprecedented nature of this is such that they're constantly making both personal and professional decisions, ones for themselves and those for their workforce. And it's exhausting to be able to continually make these kinds of novel decisions in the face of a situation in which we don't have all the information and we don't know the full scope of what the pandemic is going to present with. And so, again, making decisions in many ways, not a vacuum, but trying to determine what is the most appropriate information I need to assess in order to determine what happens for my workforce, for my family, for my business. Now, to be clear, being decisive is nothing new. This isn't a new challenge for business leaders. They are used to and accustomed to being called upon to make those clear and direct decisions in the face of a challenge. That is part and parcel of what makes a business leader a successful business leader. But it's also true that there's a kind of business leaders will often say there's a kind of a rush. There's kind of there's a jolt of adrenaline that comes from being faced with a challenge and being able to respond to that challenge, coming up with a solution that perhaps no one else thought of, being able to leverage my resources, being able to mobilize my leadership team or my workforce in a way that was unusual only a few months ago, that I never had to even think about. And all of a sudden now I am coming up with new and creative solutions. So there's a rush. It's one of the most affirming aspects of leadership when you are able to generate solutions and solve problems. But it's also exhausting. It's also one that there's a bit of a crash. After every adrenaline rush, there's a bit of a crash that says, whew, okay, I handled that one, but when's the next shoe falling? What else could possibly happen? I didn't see this coming. What makes me think I can anticipate what the next challenge is going to be? And so there is a bit of depletion that occurs for business leaders following that. And it's simply wearying, coming up with solution after solution, recognizing that yesterday's solution no longer applies to today's evolving situation. There's a unique aspect, a variant of this that I wanted to talk about that is called doom scrolling. It's something that some folks may have heard, those who are following it, but that because so many of us get our information through social media, we access it through means whenever we want to. So that's valuable and understandable in the midst of an unsure and unfamiliar situation. It's human nature to desire more info. If I can just find out a little bit more, if I could just get that one missing piece of information, then I'd be able to make a better decision. Then it would all fall into place and make sense. And so it leads to an almost obsessive, if not addictive, aspect where you continually search out information. I am doom scrolling, as they say. I'm looking through the information, checking every day. What's the latest? What hasn't happened? What's gone wrong? I'm continually looking at this information. It's almost, as some people call, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's almost a FOMO of bad news. There's a pressure that says I need to stay on top of this, and so I'm continually looking, and scrolling, and searching information, and it's driven by an attempt to gain control. That if I know what I'm up against, if I know every last bit, then I'm better able to make decisions. The trouble is, there's not that much that is changing. It's not that it changes on an hour-to-hour basis. Rarely does a complex situation have an instantaneous 1 hour change, and that's certainly not likely to be the case with COVID-19. And so I continually find myself searching out information, but it has the negative impact of draining me. It has the impact of sucking my attention, sucking my time, sucking my energies in a way that is not helpful. And yet, if I am not mindful, if I'm not intentional about this, I can easily get sucked into pursuing the next bit of social media information that doesn't necessarily enhance my decision-making with my business or with my own family.
I'm so intrigued by the concept of doom scrolling. I had never heard of it until now, and I think I kind of do it every once in a while too, just without even realizing it. So I guess how would someone identify that they are doing this, and what are some recommendations on how they can seek support to help them, resolve that?
Well, again, that's a great it's a great question, because as in any sort of compulsive behavior, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And that's another way of saying I need to be intentional. I may need to even perhaps track my time. I know there are a number of apps and applications that would allow you to say, okay, how much time did I spend? I mean, it's human nature again that all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I didn't even realize I just spent the last hour looking through all of these stories, and each one was essentially the same, but I found myself continuously seeking it out. One good clue as well, if my goal is knowledge, information, and if, as the old saying goes, knowledge is power. So my goal, why am I seeking this out? To empower me to make better decisions. If at the end of this, I find myself depressed, defeated, feeling less energized, feeling less enabled to make good decisions, that's a clear sign that, okay, this is not helping me. It's in fact hindering me and getting in the way of my making effective decisions right now. So decision fatigue is a real aspect of it, but I want to make sure that I am mindful of how much time I spend, how much energy I give to it. And my end goal is that knowledge empowers me. So I want to be seeking out sources that allow me to make those better decisions. One thing that many business leaders have found helpful in this time is to specifically set either scheduled time or to limit the amount of time they spend seeking out that information. Again, the reality is if I were to, let's just say, check in on what is the news updates or the coronavirus update in my region 3 times a day, that would be sufficient. The reality is things are not likely to change any more rapidly than that. If I check once in the morning, once midday, once at the end of the day, that would, in almost all circumstances, give you the information you need to make appropriate decisions. Anything more than that simply is a time suck and an emotional energy drain for those trying to make good decisions.
Wow, I just can't believe I've never heard of that. And like I said, I think I've found myself doing that, and limiting your time that's something that I definitely need to be better at. Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. So if a leader needs support in maintaining their adaptive capacity, what resources are generally available?
Well, we certainly feel that in the midst of this crisis, R3 Continuum has committed to laying out a variety of services that we feel would be useful and help in that empowerment goal with a leader. Certainly through evaluation so that you have the most accurate information about your workforce, about your leadership team. Crisis response to provide that immediate, tangible support, either telephonically, video enhanced, or on site, to be able to support workers as they are returning to a workforce. In particular with decision fatigue, I think our suite of services around executive optimization are uniquely calibrated because these are high-level consultative sessions that are able to help leaders be able to think about their business needs, to think about their workforce concerns, and to be able to generate those unique solutions that this situation requires. And then finally, protective services, of course, being able to make sure that as people are returning to work, as circumstances change in this rapidly evolving environment, that I am able to provide for the physical as well as emotional security of my employees, regardless of where we are on this return to work phase.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing with me today. Now I'm aware of what decision fatigue is, how it can be identified, solutions for how leaders can recharge with it, and even learn more about doom scrolling as well. To obtain more information on how you can maintain adaptive capacity or to view additional episodes of this series, visit our website at r3c.com/adaptive capacity. And in our next episode, which will be next week, for maintaining adaptive capacity, we'll be discussing something that is very relevant to many workers that are working remote or virtually, and that will be virtual environment fatigue. So be sure to stop back to our LinkedIn page or any of our social media pages to check it out. And if you are in need of any support during these challenging times, R3 Continuum can help. Connect with us. Thank you for watching.